one of the things I wanted to say why I enjoyed coming to this festival is it is the audience, because the audience they make me feel like a filmmaker. You know, you guys, it's just sweet. You talk to me about the movies I make, and it doesn't happen to me a lot. You know, I've had to introduce this guy a lot recently, and I was trying to think. I thought the word friend is a little too trite, so I'd like to introduce you to my big brother, Barry Crimmins.
Since I saw this film at Sundance, my favorite thing every day, just about every day, is getting a daily tweet from Barry begging the church to excommunicate him. It's an ongoing thing. It'll happen.
There is a God if I get excommunicated.
That's the irony. You mentioned that before that Robin Williams had known this story. Did you know this story before you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been friends with him, you know, since I was 16. So I knew his story, and his that was what part of the reason that, you know, compelled me to want to make the movie. And yeah, you know, I've always we've been friends all these years, you know.
And Bob was one of the most, when I really started dealing with it, he was one of the absolutely just carte blanche support people. And, you know, a lot of people are a little scared when they start talking about me, and he was just absolutely right there. And he was this weird thing, he was like sort of relieved. I knew there was a reason for you.
People.
So I'm glad that, you know, happened for you.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was glad. Your pain was a real burden for me, and it was no. It was more. It wasn't. It was less of a eureka moment, and it was more like, well, that makes perfect sense, and.
Stood up in the bottom.
Yeah, and because yeah, I don't think I batted an eye, you know. You know.
You were fine, and believe me, there were the gale winds for some of the eye batting. Yeah, another little subtle advertising for socialism.
Well, I mean, there's so many things, obviously, to talk about with this film and your story, and one of the things you guys touch upon in the film is this era of comedy that you guys were a part of, you know, this movement that you guys had in Boston, and it seems to me like there's this period of comedy. We know so many people from this era. We know so many people by name and their successes, and even to this day we still hear those success stories and how they knew someone, you know, coming up in the business and whatnot. And I mean, Barry, I remember seeing you for the first time on an HBO special, and I still remember, you know, the joke about the bumper sticker about "Ask me about your grandchildren." You know, roll down your windows. Yeah, I'll never forget that.
You're driving 5 miles an hour.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and but it sort of brings me, you know, it brings us to where we are today, and we sort of wonder if we're ever going to have an era like that again. I mean, I know there are some.
I don't care.
Yeah. Next question.
It would mean less to me.
Okay. Well, what I was going to ask is.
I mean, they'll come up with some. Hopefully, someone will come up with something.
Right. Well, do you think it? I mean, clearly you don't care, but if you think that it's harder to become a comedian in this day and age, where we sort of have this extreme.
I don't know, man. If you gave me the internet, I think we could have made the Dinho could have been where the Patriots played. You know, I mean, really, you know, I mean, I hustled that at the Verbal run radio station in Cambridge that we did a free show every Sunday morning, and then every time they advertised the show, I got a plug for the club. That's how we put ourselves on the map on this little radio station, WCS, and that was my whole advertising budget. Give me the impact, man. I mean, you know, and I hope the kids really, I mean, stage time is the lifeblood of comedy, and people got to go out and hustle it, and instead of sitting around worrying about why somebody isn't giving it to them, just create your own stage. There's always a bar or a coffee house or something that could use more customers in there. Find the place, set up a stage the right way, and you know, and start hustling. That's all. And if that will continue. You know what? That is happening. A lot of the alt comedy stuff that's going on now. I did a guest set last night at the show at the Lab Factory, and there were like six different kids all had like a little something going here or there. So that means that the spirit of that whole thing is alive, and you know, you're just not waiting for somebody on high to deem you appropriate. You know, because if you're that kind of mind, you're waiting for that kind of approval. You're in the wrong line of work. You know, fuck those people.
Bob, the film puts you in a perhaps unenviable position of having to make a movie about a friend, an old, long-time friend. Was that maybe even scarier than anything? Just so you have to like, do you have to have boundaries there? Do you have to like be really careful not to make it to something in a specific direction, or you could be too close to it? You could, you know, but then you don't want to pull back. How was that just sort of mentally before you even got started?
Yeah, it was. You know, it's difficult because it's hard to find out how Barry feels about something. No, yeah, it was terrifying. You know,
We have generations of people that can attest to that.
yeah. So yeah, it was terrifying, and the experience was.
I'm awful worried about you.
I was, you know, my biggest concern was how was this movie going to help my career? No, it's always been, yeah. You know, if I could exploit my friend's pain, no.
That's all it takes, man. You know, I'm there for you.
No, yeah, it was very nerve-wracking, you know, because you know, it's you know, having his not just friends but family and all these people, and trying to tell a story, and it was terrifying.
My family can be nerve-wracking. My sister, I got asked to do an interview for a movie. I didn't know they were going to bring cameras here. I know, it's incredible what amateur that was.
Well,
It's off the record.
you know, my daughter has you know, that the interview with that, you know, my daughter has a few things that she says, Dad, you look like an asshole, you know, but
I love your daughter.
yeah, she doesn't really mince words. I'm digressing, but I did a rom-com that I did. It was a romantic comedy with a tiny bit of bestiality in it, but it was all tastefully done and not on camera. And
Blowing dogs.
yeah, and we were at Sundance, and this woman behind us tried to leave at the very beginning of the movie, and her friend, she was offended, and her friend calmed her down, and she sat through the movie, and she was about an hour into the movie, and that woman started crying, the woman that was leaving, and she was crying watching the movie, and my daughter goes, "Look at your friend now." And she goes, "Yeah, you cried, bitch, you cried."
You take a little dog blowjob.
Yeah, toughen up. She'll heckle. She'll heckle like when we're doing shows, you know. Do the voice, Bobcat. Nobody wants to hear you talk. So yeah, she's a character.
That's a good kid right there.
I forgot what the question was. I was just saying how how you know, the basement, you know, it's you know, Barry, you know, as he says, you go through a problem, you know, not around it, and you know, I wanted to shoot the places where these horrible things happened and not do reenactments, and Barry wanted, well, you know, he was like, I'm gonna go in the basement, you can film it or not. We had an argument, and as a...
I was gonna go stand upstairs, like, you know, I don't, maybe I shouldn't go there, like, you know, I mean, anybody should go there.
Well, you were definitely went into shock.
That's why I knew I could do it. I know how to operate this, as I call it, a shade of stock. I know how to do that. So when I got there, the endorphins got released, and you can tell I'm really triggered because the whole time I'm going,
yeah.
You know, that's me, just whatever, that's what happens. And I really didn't, but I mean, I wasn't going to go there and stand by the door and then the rest of my life going like, man, you know, I was giving it too much power.
Yeah. Well, afterwards he goes, I don't remember anything I said in the basement. Can you use any of it? And I said, that doesn't matter. I'm playing yakety sax all through that scene.
I wish you stuck to your gun.
We couldn't afford yakety sax.
The only reason.
What did you say at the end of that? What does he say then?
He says, and I'm never going to come back here again.
Cut to me coming to every film festival and then sitting and like not sitting through the whole movie because I'm completely sick of myself at this point. So I, you know, wait to come in, you know, and I always walk in as the car's pulling up to the house. Not coming back here, so taking laps.
I think that just, you know, you watch the movie, you see what a courageous man he is, and then that scene just, you know, it is, you know, we joke about it, but, you know, as someone who loves this man as much as I do, it's even difficult for me, so I can't imagine what it's like for him. Yeah.
This entire film really is kind of an emotional roller coaster ride. It goes from laughs to everything that happens in the second half of the film, and even the way we're talking about it now. And I'm wondering, the whole idea that we have all these issues today, whether it be pedophilia, wherever it comes from, or all these things that we hear about in the news. And I'm wondering if, especially now with the internet, we get to a point where sort of the sensationalism of any sort of issue overwhelms the eventual awareness and goodness that it will do for people in that position.
Pedophilia is pretty heavy stuff. It's hard to sort of exaggerate what happens when children get raped and exploited in that way. I mean, there's people that will use it for their own purposes and to whatever. You know, people will use anything, but literally I mean, just what I saw doing the AOL, I couldn't exaggerate. I didn't have to be sensational. In fact, I had to tone it down. You know, what I saw, and I'll tell you what, most sexual abuse survivors I talk to will come up to me and go, well, what happened to me was nothing like what, and then they tell you this incredibly heartbreaking, awful story. So the idea that it's exaggerated or sensationalized, I gotta take issue with you on that. I don't really think it is, I just think it's overwhelming and scary to people still. And by the way, we're not just, we're talking about it more now, but it's always been around. It's always been around.
In no way that I mean to imply that
we
you
heard
were
about it.
sensationalizing it.
No, I know you don't mean me, but I mean in general.
That other people would make that claim as
stupid
insane.
TV shows and whatever, they handle stuff that, you know, I mean, that's
Well, I
generally not
I think maybe this is what you're getting at. It's a weird time we live in where if it's a daytime talk show or if it's the internet and they're dealing with anything, everything gets trivialized.
By the way, when I did that show in Boston where I talked about what happened to me with that week, I got phone calls from those bad daytime talk shows, and I said, you know, as Tommy Gilmore would say, hey, go go fuck yourself, in a nice way, of course. Just get, forget. I said what I had to say, pulled to there, and it was about really close to a year later, I wrote the piece from Phoenix. And then I really figured my path to healing was being concerned with the other people, I mean, dealing with everything I had to do. As I said, for a long time, I wrestled every wolfman that knocked at the door for a few years till they got tired of knocking on the door. And then I began to find other people began to find me who were sort of where I was at a while ago. And I think that's the way with recovery from anything, that really there's this selfish thing in it for you, because if you just see somebody who's at a point you were at a while ago, you realize the progress you've made and the healing you've done. And then to be able to do something for contemporary children, not just make it be about adult survivors of abuse, but contemporary children, which is what the child pornography piece was, because those people we took out the streets at that time, because a bunch of people got busted from what I did. And I mean, that's a weird thing. Me working with the FBI coming to my house, it's like,
Yeah,
they usually don't announce themselves.
It's not in the movie, but there was, I believe it's like close to 120 arrests from the files that you handed over. The reason it's not in the movie is, you might find this strange, but the FBI didn't want anything to do with Barry in this movie. I'm sure they didn't want to say, oh yeah, this radical